Early last week, we had several stalwarts in the community reach out on their respective accounts and address the community at large about their issues with the game and how said issues have been causing problems that people may or may not have been acutely aware of. I mentioned this in my last video briefly, but Veritas led the charge with a 50-minute banger of a video going over his issues and the overall direction of the game from years gone. I think for the most part, the majority of individuals agreed with his sentiments, myself included, and luckily it sounded like BSG was listening, because numerous things happened to the game after that video came out. Recoil in general got better, weight not as drastic, which in turn makes movement better, as well as armors not being as restrictive with movement as well. Overall, it was a lot of compounding issues being dialed back, so the game can feel good to play once more. I myself am very happy with the outcome. It was something we needed, but maybe some of us just didn't know how to articulate. But luckily, there are people who can, and with a large enough audience to move some mountains around. And while the changes themselves are substantial, that's not what I wanted to get into today. I wanted to remind everyone that no matter how bad things get, at the end of the day, if we as a community come together and constructively and respectfully, of course that's important too, explain our frustrations with the game, when most people seem to be on the same wavelength, we can get things done and make changes to the game that are better for most people. Obviously you can't please everyone, but the majority is the most important. I'll be honest and say the last video was just originally going to be talking about Veritas' 50-minute video. Maybe not in the style of, watching it and talking over it, but more so hitting the key points and just throwing my 2 cents into the equation. And in hindsight, maybe it should have been instead of just talking about, scarcity in Tarkov. But I'm glad I did what I did. And hey, we're talking about it now, after we actually got changes. So I can just say I was waiting to see if something happens. Right, guys? Either way, I think it's important to remind everyone that things can change if we all just collectively try to send the same message and are all on the same wavelength. There are enough places to get information out there that people who can make changes will see them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, game balance or feel-related. Bugs, glitches, crashes, more game-critical situations can also be relayed whenever they crop up. Maybe it's a spot on the map that makes you invincible, or you can see the floor and walls so you know where everyone is. Regardless of what issue it is, someone can bring it up and it can get signal boosted to heck and back if enough people are understanding and want the same end result, regardless of if they themselves as an individual have the capacity to get the message across in the first place. It could be anybody, it doesn't have to be someone with 1 million subs or viewers on Twitch or anything. Could just be someone who plays the game and is just really passionate about it. Using myself as an example, I'm tiny in the grand scheme of things, but I'm very lucky that I have even 1,200 subs and that there are people who are just interested by what I have to say on a topic. But there are bigger people and smaller people than myself who can do a much better job of it and should have their moment if they have something important to say. From the sounds of it across the internet, these changes have been received very, very positively, which is wonderful to hear. It's the first time in what feels like an eternity where systems, numbers, dials were adjusted all on the back end that have been unanimously been praised by the community, and I'm excited to see what other kinds of changes BSG makes now they know what they're doing is good and that they have some momentum on their back. I'm very curious to see if they continue making additional changes or if they just, take a back seat, let it sit for a little while and see how people feel. But what are some other potential changes that they could make? Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. Movement, recoil, weight, they hit the major ones right off the bat. I suppose maybe adjusting scabs a little bit, messing with them and seeing what happens could be interesting. On top of that, maybe bosses or something as well, and not just the normal breaky scabs, but as for now, I can't really complain. It's been a long time coming, and again, it's been an even longer time since everyone is just happy playing the game and not just getting frustrated at the nuances of it and wanting to uninstall. It really does take me back to when it was smaller and a little more niche. But I'm glad we all came together to voice some concerns with the game and decisions that were being made. Maybe it's just me, but Tarkov has always been a complicated game. But that doesn't mean those complicated components can't be simplified to their core mechanics. Whether it's ammo, movement, weight, these systems could maybe perhaps be rung in to help facilitate cyclical gameplay. They can be complicated but straightforward at least, streamlined at the same time. Because for anyone who has played Tarkov for any length of time, the game isn't that complicated, but just filled with situations that require multiple steps to resolve. Whether that's understanding the healing, reloading, repacking ammo, or using the menus in your stash, There are definitely more games out there that are genuinely more complicated and have mechanics that require more out of the player to figure out. That isn't to downplay Tarkov and what is going on, but this is just more from a veteran perspective. I'm sure anyone that tries to get into the game now is very much overwhelmed and struggling, which is completely fair. But the main takeaway from this was that I am very happy to know that we can come together as a community when the game needs it and give BSG our frustrations in a way that doesn't make them hate us. It can be done constructively and effectively, even if you don't necessarily agree with what is being asked by the community. Just the fact that we have an open and honest discussion about it speaks volumes for how we should be handling future situations in which the game feels as though it's in a really rough state and just needs some love. Now, we still obviously have a long way to go before the game's ever fixed, for now. I just say better, because there are still tons of audio issues, lots of packet loss and networking problems, and other issues that still compound together for a less than ideal gaming experience. So if you have issues, sound off through bug reports and getting the word out across the socials, and together we can make changes in Tarkov and help turn it into the game we all know it can be. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about Tarkov and giving the community a pat on the back every once in a while. I hope to see you in future ones.